I need some help.
You need help? What help do you need?
I need to help put my shoes on. Can you help, Mommy? Your eyebrows.
Eyelashes.
What are you doing?
I'm recording. Bye.
Bye-bye. You can make your eyebrows.
Okay.
You need to make your eyebrows and making a really pretty.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you from the shoes.
Oh, you're welcome, sweetie. Glad I could help.
Bye.
Bye. Okay. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing one of hopefully many art experiments. Now these videos are going to be a little bit different than what I normally do. Usually I do things that are wearable, and also I try to generally have at least a little bit of experience in that sort of project before I get started on it. But with these art experiments, hopefully they will be mediums that I have little to no experience in, and I will be able to learn something completely new and share the process with you. So there you go. Now, if you're anything like me, you have seen a bunch of these videos go around where artists make these beautifully intricate floral and geometric designs using polymer clay. And if you've seen videos of like old-fashioned candy where they create an image in a long log of candy and then they make it thinner and thinner and thinner and then they chop it into little bits, that's basically exactly the same thing that people do with polymer clay. They create these long logs of clay with a detailed picture on the inside, and then you can slice it and move things around and make beautiful repeating patterns with it. Can you settle? So when I started this project, I had never used polymer clay before, and I didn't really know what it was going to feel like. I didn't know what to expect. I did actually play around with the whole caning technique using my daughter's Play-Doh, but obviously that did not work very well. I didn't get any footage of that. Basically, I just wanted to see if I had the right concept of how this was supposed to work, but Play-Doh is definitely not a kind of medium you could do this with. So I went ahead and bought some polymer clay, and I was really excited because I had never really played with this sort of thing before. I have cat fur on my nose now. You're a really big help. So my basic idea was to create little musical note ornaments so that I could give them to my family for Christmas. So my vision was having poinsettias with like sparkly centers on a dark purpley black background. The first thing I really wanted to do was to show you what I've got, and what I picked up was this from Sculpey. Part of the reason why I did this was because it had slightly larger chunks of clay than you'd find in other options. Anyways, that's why I picked this one, also because it looked like a pretty big brand and the price was believable. One of the other things I've got is this little set of cookie cutters. These were actually very cheap. Another thing that I got was this set, which was also from the Sculpey store, of a bunch of different finishes and glues and like other useful things. The last thing I have is this set of tools, and I am hoping that this will be a good set because again it was pretty cheap for the number of things that you get in it, but I'm pretty hopeful. So this kit comes with some rollers, and it's supposed to come with like these little acrylic rectangles that you can roll stuff on. I'm planning to just use my trusty old art desk. So I wanted to get something that had these flat slicers, because a lot of the process of caning requires you to be able to like slice up from the bottom or to slice it in very clean cuts. So I wanted to have some of those. And these are probably razor sharp, so these are definitely not kids' crafting tools. And there's also a much larger one, which is awesome. We have a couple of metal tools. This one is just a sharp point. This one is kind of a brush sort of thing. Okay, so we have a acrylic roller here, of pretty good size. We have several squeegee type things of various sizes and shapes. These are not very sharp at all, they're just plastic. Then we have a bunch of smaller sculpting tools. These are all plastic as well. Where's the things? And then we have 2 of these squares. These have... Anyways, so we do have these tiny squares. They are very small, so I'm not really sure how useful that's going to end up being, but we do have them. So that's basically all of our tools, and what my plan is moving forward with this is I have 2 designs in mind that I want to try to do. Number 1, I want to experiment with this by making one of my sunflowers. So it's going to have like the background of blue and a bunch of petals and a spirally center. Then once I have gotten a little bit more confidence, I plan on making this like poinsettia with black in the background. Then I can make Christmas tree ornaments by like cutting a little hole in it, and then you could just like hang a little poinsettia musical note on the Christmas tree. I think that could be really cute. So that is my current plan. And, check this out. Look at this kitty! Yes, you! You are so cute! Have you missed the art desk? Yes, I have too. Oh my goodness. You're gonna make this process really interesting, aren't you? Are you a good girl? Yeah, you're a good girl. So for this design, I'm gonna probably need this and this. So some yellow, brown, green, blue. Now I also want to take into account what I'm gonna need for my main project, which is gonna be red and black and probably green, maybe a little orange to brighten it up. So these are colors that I really don't want to touch too much, and I would like to save some of the yellow as well. And honestly, I don't want to use up all of everything that I have, so. My question, I guess, is should I start by trying to do a design, or should I just get used to using the clay? I think maybe we'll just get started with trying to make the background color. Okay, let's do about 1/3 of this, I think. That's not very much. We're probably going to need at least half. It feels so nice. The only other clay, really, that I've worked with, other than like Play-Doh, is like actual pottery clay, which I did take a pottery class in college, which I did not do very well in, primarily because I don't have the strongest arms. So this is definitely going to be a challenge, but a challenge I would like to attempt to try. So I want to save some of this for like the line work around it, but then for the other part of it, which is going to be a little bit thicker, I want it to go in a gradient from an olivey green to this kind of color. And I did this way too thin. It's not going to turn out very nice at all, but you can kind of see what I was going for. So let's see if I can manage to make this a little longer. Let's see if this looks like a spiral at all on the inside. I can kind of see a spiral in there. I mean, it's not fabulous, but it does kind of work. It's really lumpy on one end. I'm probably going to combine this and have this be one of my browns for later. The thought is definitely there. You can definitely get the general gist of what I was going for. And I'm going to chop this up into little pieces and use it for a brown for later, especially since I think I'm going to need to do this in bigger batches. I think this is just on the edge of what is workable. The first thing that I did on this second day was remake these spirals, making them a little bit thicker. All that I had to do was create a nice gradient, layer it with the brown, and then spin it up, and it all came together quite easily actually. Once I had made the centers to how I wanted them, I continued moving on to the flowers, and I wanted to have a bit of a gradient from the nice bright yellow that I had to kind of a goldeny yellow, and then down to almost a brown. I put these together pretty quickly, and then messed around a little bit with how I could fold it together to create the petals. There's a lot of just playing around with this medium. It's so much fun to use, and it is so satisfying to blend. I went through several iterations of it, and eventually I got to a point where I was pretty happy with it, and I wanted to start actually putting the sunflower shape itself together. So I had the log, I guess, of the spiral center, and then I had all of these longer pieces that would be the petals. And I really liked how it started to fit together. All of the little stripes from the gradient and how I had folded it together came through really nice with the petals, and it looked really cool and organic. I grabbed the blue of the background and put it between the petals first before I wrapped the entire thing to try to keep the petals a little bit more separated from each other. And then I coated the entire thing with a little bit of blue, and I sliced it up, and I could see these beautiful little yellow flowers. I was so excited with it. I mixed a bunch of extra clay that I had together to create a bit of a background for me to put this on. So I placed all my little pieces, I rolled it out, I cut out a nice circle shape because I thought it would be cool to actually make something that would have to stand up or support its own weight. Something kind of organic looking that I might be able to use later, because I really wanted to test to see if the baking process was going to work as well as I was hoping it would. And then I did a little bit of measuring to see how big of a section I would need for the outside walls of the bowl. I made a strip of the extra clay to lay everything else on top of, and I put down a bunch of my beautiful little flowers and I rolled them out. I was a little concerned because I couldn't quite figure out how to roll it without the flowers getting really distorted. But again, this was just to go through all the motions and get a grasp of how to do a project from beginning to end. So I wasn't too worried about it this time. I thought it was kind of a cool effect. But I was like, hey, since it's going to look organic anyways, let's kind of lean into that and have it be asymmetrical. I used a bit of the polymer clay glue that came in to help reinforce how the bottom of the bowl was connected to the walls, because I couldn't really figure out how I was going to make sure they were really sticking together and wouldn't get messed up. And I tried to do some smoothing around the outside. I got out a cookie sheet and put down some parchment paper. Once I had set it on the parchment paper, I did just a little bit more smoothing along the bottom to try to help it blend nicer. And I put it in the oven.
Goodbye, my little friend. Good luck.
And I waited. And of course I had a cup of tea because my nerves were getting the best of me. I watched it cooking in there. For some reason I was really expecting for it to just fall apart, but it didn't. I pulled out my piece, and immediately it seemed to be like a little harder, but still kind of floppy. I was really worried that I hadn't baked it quite enough, but just like a good cookie, you let it sit there for a little bit, and it solidified quite nicely, and it felt really solid. It didn't feel like I was going to fall apart. It didn't seem like any of the pieces of the flowers on top of the background were going to fall apart or anything, and even the really ugly seam between the bottom of the bowl and the walls seemed like it was holding pretty strong, so I was really happy with it, even though it was kind of ugly. On the whole, I was really happy with how it turned out, and I was excited to work on the final product.
So it's the next day, and what I'm going to do first is not so much creative as mathematical. So I want to figure out exactly how much clay I'm going to end up needing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a piece of paper, and we're going to trace out all of the cookie cutters that I want to end up using, and then we will calculate out a specific amount of clay, like a 3x-inch square at about the finished depth that I'm hoping for, and then we are going to use a kitchen scale to weigh that so that we can know exactly how much clay we need for the final one, so we can overestimate and have way more than we need. So what does this tell us? This tells us that we need at least 11.5 ounces of clay. Okay, that is very good to know. Now this is a definite overestimation because we have large amounts of extra over here and over here, but honestly this is about as close as you can get.
Once I had a general idea of how much volume of clay I would need for the final project, I looked at the colors I had left. I played around a bit with the black to see how strong the pigment was, and I begrudgingly admitted to myself that I was going to need a lot more clay. However, I wanted to play with the green color and try my hand at making a leaf cane before I got too discouraged. Next, I wanted to see if I would be able to add my own pigments to the polymer clay to help modify the colors I had and make it go further. My two main pigments I thought to try were mica powders and charcoal. The charcoal worked pretty well to help darken the clay, but it did make it a bit crumbly, so I tried mixing in some liquid polymer clay, which helped a lot. This was an incredibly messy process, but it seemed promising. The mica powders were not quite as effective at changing the color, but if I added enough, it did add a nice shiny look to the clay, which I liked. So with this knowledge in mind, I decided I was going to see how much I could do with just mica powder and the liquid polymer clay, so I mixed the two together. I think it's about as good as we can hope for a white to get. And it ended up making a really cool white. And I wanted to see if I could make the poinsettias with just the materials that I already had. So these are our lightest ones. We have white, we have kind of a pink that was made entirely without red. And then we have all of our darker colors. So I mixed them together as much as I could to try to get a nice gradient. And as I was doing this, I was realizing that it did not quite look red enough. Like the darkest color I had was definitely purple, the lightest one was kind of a peachy orange, but I did want to go all the way through to see how close I could get. So I did a lot of blending back and forth to try to create as nice of a gradient as I could. The clay that I made entirely with just the mica powder and liquid polymer actually worked really well and it blended in beautifully. So I spiraled it up and sliced it in half, and then I messed around with it a bit more to try to create a leaf-like design like I had done with the green. And as I was doing this, I was realizing it was looking way too much like bacon. I kept playing around with it. I wasn't really happy with it, but I did really want to just go all the way through this process to see how it would work and if I was at least at all close on the amount of clay I needed. And here was the final result. I kind of liked it, but there was a lot that needed fixing. As you can see, the outside was this really unfortunate chocolatey brown sort of color, which kind of worked, but The poinsettias also were not very red at all, especially in person. On camera they look a little better, but in person they were definitely more of like a weird fleshy tone, which I didn't really like at all, but I wanted to go ahead and make the musical notes, cut them out, and bake them, because I wanted to see how the clay that I had made from scratch would bake, see if that would work at all. And it did end up working. I was pretty happy with it, so I moved on.
Alright, we are back with a box of reinforcements, some sandpaper, and I also have larger packages of clay. Specifically, we have black clay, white, as you can see. I think both of those are going to be extremely important. Black because it's the background, and white just because you always need more white. Also got a bunch of these light baby pinks because they're sparkly and because they were on sale for like 99 cents a piece, so I just got a bunch of them because I like pink. And then I also got a bunch of these because they are a nice bright red. They're kind of more of an orange in person than they were on screen, but that's alright.
At first, I was pretty hopeful that the orangish poppy color and the Princess Pearl light pink would mix together to create a really nice red, and I messed around with the idea of having like a 9-way gradient to add a bit more variation into the petals, but I realized as I was working on it that the combo of colors was just not red enough. I really wanted a nice, bright, Christmassy red, and it just was not working out. So I got in some practice making the poinsettia leaves, but then that was about it, and I realized I was going to need to buy some more. Welcome back to the art desk. We have all of our pretty little things right here. Okay, so last time we kind of had like 3 sets of gradients. So we had like a true red, we had a bluish red, and we had a more yellowy or orangish red. And I think we're going to do that again.
is actually the perfect width for what I'm planning to do. So I think I'm gonna figure out a way to use this as like a bit of a measure for how wide to cut these strips. Yeah, that kind of works. I mean, it doesn't have to be super precise, but I feel like the more precise we can manage to do it, the less weird squishing and squashing we're gonna have. Also, this can give me an idea about how many flowers we'll be able to do. So we need to be able to have at least 15 cookies ready to go. So like we can do 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. If we make like a square about this big, we can make at least 18. Given that I want to have at least one flower, even if it doesn't exactly work out that way, I want to guesstimate at least one flower per cookie. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay, so I think we need to go a little bit smaller. Okay. So I'm not quite happy with the density. I think we might need to go ahead and do either leaves or some kind of other Christmassy thing, like holly. Holly might be doable. Nice and smooth. We're almost to the point where I can cut the cookies out and bake them. So we have our 2 pieces. I've got some extra cornstarch. So I've got the Sculpey set of sanding paper. The problem is that these only go down to 400, which I feel like is not going to be quite sufficient for some of the things that I need to do. So I raided the supply closet and got some 60 and 150, both of which are probably way too strong than I need. This is going to take a while.
all sanded, and we just need to finish glazing them. So these should be done. Those over there are done. These have 2 coats, this has 1 coat, and then we're going to do these. So but yeah, now I just need to let these dry for a good long time. And then we just need some ribbons, and we are done. So final thoughts, how was this for an art experiment? I really liked it. There's a few things that made it kind of difficult. One of the big things being cleanup, honestly. You gotta really scrub at your hands to get rid of the weird, like, greasy, plasticky film. So pros, what was awesome about this? Basically everything else. I liked that the polymer clay would warm up with use. So it might be hard to use like in the first few minutes, but as soon as you've kneaded it a bit, it becomes a lot softer and more workable, which is awesome. I love the bright colors. I think it's really fun to mix colors. I think it's really fun to create these gradients. I think that's probably my personal favorite step in the process, is making these gradients. I really like the technique of using cookie cutters to like make your final shapes. I really like how it feels a lot like copy and paste, honestly. Once you have a cane of a single petal or a single leaf, you can cut that and make it smaller or bigger as you want and like combine things together. That's so cool. It is a little bit tricky to figure out like how you're going to prevent things from becoming too round or squished. I feel like my poinsettias kind of lost some of their pokiness at the edges of the leaf. Price-wise, it is not super cheap. It isn't too expensive though. Would I do it again? Absolutely. I don't think I would do quite the same. I don't really know exactly what I would do with polymer clay if I were to do it again. I would like to do something a little bit more sculptural. I think that would be fun. I haven't really made any clay sculpture before, but I can definitely see that being really cool. Would I do the caning techniques again? Absolutely, 100%. I would totally do this again if I had a good idea for a project. It was very fun, it was very satisfying. It's not too expensive, and you don't really need any specialized equipment other than a really good slicer. You want to have one of those really nice sharp razor blade slicer things, because that will make all of the difference in how your finished cane cookies look. If your knife is dull at all, it's going to smear instead of slice, so that is definitely one of the biggest tools you need. Beyond that, you want to have like some sort of a rolling device. That's kind of it. How do I like the final product? I would definitely have rolled them a little bit thicker. I had a lot of fun with this project. It was really satisfying. And thank you so much for watching. Thank you for all of the support so far. I can't wait to see what next year will bring me. And Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and have an amazing rest of your day.